everyone. I am Kara Warner, very excited to be your host for today's half hour with Something Very Bad is Going to Happen. I am very excited to be joined by creator, executive producer, writer, and showrunner, Haley Z. Boston. Welcome, Haley. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Very excited to get into this series of yours. Would you do us the honor of kind of giving us an overview of the series before we dig into the trailer?
Totally. Something very bad is going to happen is a horror show that follows Rachel Harkin, who's a young woman getting married, and it's the week leading up to her wedding. She's driving to her fiance's family home, a cabin in the woods, of course, to get married at the end of the week, and she starts to feel like something very bad is going to happen. She can't quite put her finger on it, and as the week progresses, things get weirder and scarier and worse. And really, it's about sort of doubt in a relationship and the fear of commitment as she is about to make this life-altering commitment.
Yes. I gotta say, I love anything exploring matrimony in all shapes, sizes, viscera.
There's so
Uh,
much there.
yes, yes. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Hey, you were the one.
Should we get married or something?
Oh, I'm thinking really small ceremony, my parents' little vacation cabin in the woods. None of the wedding bullshit, just beautiful nature, snow falling outside the window.
That's it. I'll marry you.
My family is gonna love you.
This is insane.
I'm so honored that you two chose to get married here. It is up to you now to protect the soul in front of you.
What makes two people soulmates? Some call it fate. But the most important decision is who you trust to keep secrets.
If there is such thing as a soulmate, then yes, Nicky is my soulmate.
Are you sure he's the one?
To love.
Something doesn't add up.
I don't know what to do.
We are still getting married, right?
Ever since we got here, I feel like something weird is going on.
I want to marry you. And you want to marry me. Isn't that all that matters?
That's what you are.
So good. I have to admit that I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to like real horror, which you have done so well here. So a lot of this I had to watch in the daytime, because it's just so well done. Because you're wearing a lot of hats on this,
Yeah.
where did the idea start? Was there a germ, a seed to start, or how did
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a pretty shocking ending, and that's sort of where it started.
aha.
I had an image for something that happens toward in the last, I don't know, 15 minutes of the finale, and kind of backtracked from there. But there was so much that needed to be figured out, until I got to that point. But the idea was inspired by my parents' relationship, and which I it's funny for me to say because after you watch that trailer, you're like, oh no.
Right.
But it's because they have a really beautiful relationship and they've been married for almost 40 years. Um, And I have always felt like that was a curse in a way because their marriage is so perfect. I'll put that in
Sure.
quotes. That I know that that exists, and so I sort of developed this fear of commitment where I'm like, well, if you're not like my parents, then what are we doing here?
I honestly, that's a good bar to set for yourself in
Yeah.
these trying modern times we're living in.
Yeah, I used to be envious of people who like didn't have that kind of role model. So because I was like, well, your standards are low to normal and mine are like really high. So it kind of just made sense to explore that fear in through a horror show.
Yeah. We talked a little bit before, but I would love to hear you kind of talk about the title of the series because I think there are so many great things about what you're doing with the genre here, and I think the title also is why we like horror, right? Because something bad probably is gonna happen. Can you talk about the title of the show and how we got there?
Yeah, so the title of the show, I don't remember exactly when I came up with it. I recently found a document on my computer that had like early ideas. And actually I also discovered that the character of Nicky, who's played by Adam DiMarco, was originally named Adam. And
Ah,
I told him that and I was like, it was fate.
yeah.
But I had a list of titles and the earliest one was Matrimony, which is boring, and I don't like one-word titles. Um, but the playlist for the show is still called that on my Spotify. But yeah, and then I saw that something very bad is going to happen was written there, and then I think I maybe realized this later, but the idea Rachel is someone who has a lot of paranoia inside of her and anxiety, and that idea that you feel like something bad's going to happen. And I feel like that's something a lot of people can relate to. It then made sense to kind of lean into that. And I assumed Netflix would make me change the title because it's long and vague. But I'm glad they didn't. And it gets to live kind of, yes, it's about a wedding and that's a big part of it, but it is also just about kind of being a woman who's experiencing doubt and anxiety, and I think that can apply to a lot of different scenarios.
Yes. Very, very much so. It works in so many ways. And then like one of my favorite things about kind of horror and like watching like this is like there are a lot of red herrings and Mr. Eggs, and
Yeah.
I imagine you probably had a fun you and your team probably had a lot of fun deciding where to go. How do you approach kind of that aspect of the genre, whether it's, imagery, things that may or may not be there? How would you kind of describe them in this series?
Yeah, so there are a lot of misdirects in the show, and in part that's because I think it's really hard to sustain the genre in television.
Yeah.
There are a lot of limitations, I think, to making horror in TV. Obviously, I'm not in control of the environment. You can watch it during the day with all the lights
Thank you.
on. You can make it quieter, it's in my hope is that everyone watches it in the middle of the night, very loud.
Yeah.
Um, but so there's I think a lot of work on my end to try to make sure that you stay invested. Because once you reveal what the horror is, it's not scary anymore. So
Right.
the show has a pretty big tonal shift at the midpoint when you understand what the very bad thing is. But the first kind of four episodes, the audience is guessing what that is, and we kind of lead you down many different paths. And so in a way there's a lot of homage to horror films that I love, Carrie being one of them. Uh, and just kind of, the way we talked about it, we had comps for different horror movies for every episode. And on a broader level, it was just sort of about which subgenre we were playing in.
Okay.
So the pilot has a lot of jump scares in it, and it's a road movie, and there's a lot of threads being opened. And then the second episode has a bit more of a claustrophobic Rosemary's Baby kind of paranoid tension. The third episode is like a bit of a home invasion movie. There's a lot of character drama in that episode, and then the fourth episode is found footage. So that all came from this idea of kind of making the audience feel unsettled, replicating Rachel's experience because she has a feeling that something bad's going to happen and she doesn't know what it is. So I always wanted the audience to feel what she was feeling and experience what she was experiencing. And so because of that, there's a lot of mystery in the first half. And then you understand what it is, and then it becomes about, okay, now how do I stop this?
Right. Were you able to shoot? I mean, I know chronological filming is not always possible. How were you able to shoot it?
We shot so we shot 72 days and we were almost always shooting 2 units at once.
Oh, nice.
We did like the pilot we shot over the whole shoot because
Ooh,
that's the only episode that has a lot of locations outside of the house.
right.
So we ended up parsing that one out. In fact, I think the first conversation scene between Rachel and Nikki we shot on the last day. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Like knowing that, I'm like, I wish we kind of didn't do that.
Right.
But it was like it would have been impossible to get the show shot in that amount of time. And then for the most part, like we went in order. There was an episode, I think episode 6 and 7, where maybe flipped a bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, and a huge consideration was, we shot in Toronto, uh, and it takes place in the winter, so we did end up having. I remember being very stressed that I had a version of the finale that had an end. The ending was like a little bit malleable,
Okay.
and we had to pull up the very end of the show. We had to shoot it early because we were losing snow.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there was a very stressful couple days where I was like, I really need to land the plane on this. I need to like make this commitment right now because we're running out of time. Um, and I find that is common in television. There's you're just moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, you're doing so much on the show. I would love to talk about your cast a little bit because that was again me being a little bit of a wuss. I just thought, oh, I need to watch all these actors play together.
Yeah.
Especially in this way. I mean, the art departments too. It's one of my favorite things to talk about on a genre project because it's just so visual
Yeah.
and terrifying because of it. But yes, what I mean, talk a little bit about Cammy, Camila, and Adam, just and how that works out so well for what you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, they're both fantastic performers. I felt very lucky that I, you know, they were available and they wanted to do the project. And Cami, I had seen her in Never Going Back, which is a great film. And she's just struck me as someone who felt so real and natural. And she taped for us, and it was just sort of an immediate like I would watch this person for hours. And that's a really hard role. I mean, she's in almost every scene. She's has to do a lot of intense emotional work, and we needed her to feel grounded, even though, what she's experiencing is very heightened. And Cami had never worked in the genre before. She was so game to do anything, and I gave her a list of like 40 horror movies that she watched and would send me voice notes. Big.
40. I don't know if I've
Yeah,
seen
I
that.
know. I know it's funny. I realized after it because I also sent it to Adam, and he was like, I didn't watch any of them. Um, but his reasoning was great, which is that his character is not living in a horror movie, and it's not the way that Nicky thinks. So I thought that was fantastic. And
Yeah.
Adam is someone who, I knew him from The White Lotus, and he was so great in that. And um, the character of Nicky is someone who's, very sympathetic and sweet and balances Rachel out. And I really there's a trope in horror where if the woman is kind of going through something and the man doesn't believe her, doesn't see it. And I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want the audience to be watching going, just dump him. Um, and so you have to root for them. And when I saw them together, it was so clear that they are a complex couple. And I think you can watch the pilot, and some people might already think, I don't know, maybe they're not right for each other. Some people might really believe in them. And I think that's the fun of a show where you have uh, a couple and you're we know the title of the show, and so you can't expect it to be a perfect relationship,
Yeah.
but yeah, they really complemented each other. And initially, as written, Rachel was a little more kind of sardonic and dark in the way that she talked, and Nicky was a little more of the golden retriever. And I actually think Cammy has brought this energy to the character, and Adam brought a like calm. So some of their traits kind of flipped a little bit, but it works really well because they still balance each other.
I don't know how you've received, I mean, the series premiered in March, so people have been able to digest it a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you receive feedback, or have you gotten into people's theories or questions? What are you enjoying about the reactions so far?
I try not to read
Yeah,
anything.
fair.
There's a lot of people commenting, the show's bo bad and boring, and
Well, we don't need those.
I go, oh no, I'm too sensitive for that.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting to see how many people like love Rachel and love the end of the show. I think that was something I was anxious about, was like, is the ending gonna work? Because I love an ending that feels a bit open. Um, and I think it's interesting to have a sort of divisive ending, but I've found that a lot of people are loving the kind of I would put it in the good for her cinematic universe. So I think that's exciting to me. And then uh, the reaction that the show is very scary because
Yeah.
it's hard for me to tell, I'm so close to it that I was quite surprised that people are reacting like that and turning it off because it's too scary. So that makes me very happy as a horror fan. And then there's a lot of conversation about, Rachel's is trying to figure out if Nicky is her soulmate, and there are other characters who pop in as potential soulmates, and so seeing people react to that, and wishing she ended up with someone else.
Yeah.
That's fun to see.
How did you decide on kind of your own rules for this? Because I think the what is fun about the genre again is you can play with certain mythology and certain rules, and there there is a curse element that I mean I love a curse. I love a family bloodline. But again, like I said, I love something exploring matrimony and the
Yeah,
patriarchal side of matrimony in particular. So how
totally.
did you kind of come up with that aspect?
So, I mean, a big part of it was just kind of figuring out Rachel's emotional story first. When I was in the writer's room, uh, the show had not been greenlit yet. We got a writer's room pickup. And then within the first 3 weeks, I had to pitch the whole show to Netflix and hope to get a green light. So it was a really kind of short amount of time that we had to map out the whole season. Um, and what I started with was like, I know that this is about a woman having doubts, and so much of those doubts come from societal expectations of, what it means to be a wife. Um, and I would joke that the real horror is heterosexuality. Um,
I
so
love it.
there's this, she decides to marry a man, and here she is. And And so in sort of mapping out her doubt and the journey of her doubt and what um she's going through, how she is questioning him, uh, and then ultimately where she ends up. That's what I did first. I wrote it all out in prose. And then the task was to have the mythology match that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so because I think it's really challenging in horror and if you're creating something supernatural, then you know it could go off the rails easily and become confusing. And
Right.
so I wanted it to match the emotional story, and I knew I didn't want to do like any dreams, nightmares, hallucinations, because I just wanted to keep it very close to the emotional story.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about her kind of arc. She goes from having doubt to having faith, and um, what she thinks is that the opposite of doubt is certainty, but there is no certainty in
Right.
this question of am I marrying the right person? Did I choose the right person? It's all a leap of faith. And so I knew I wanted Rachel's sort of journey to be pure in that way. And so then the question becomes, okay, now how do I use genre to like fuck with that plan of hers?
Yeah. And you chose a lot of fun ways to do that.
Thank you.
Even like again, like the artistic details of the different shades of her lipstick, I thought were very interesting
Mm.
because it makes you look at her in different ways. So I thought those were really interesting choices. Was that is that an element that you enjoy as far as, really digging into the aesthetics and like how what scares people or what unsettles people that can just be like a lip shade color or the wardrobe?
Totally, yes. I mean, that's so much of that is the joy of collaborating,
Yeah.
and um I love that part of the process of running a show where you start with a very small group of creative people, and then it's like the writers were my creative confidants, and we went down all these roads together, and it was probably hellish, and I'm sorry for what I put them through. um but I think you have to go down all the roads, like in order to know what the right one is. And then, I went to Toronto, and suddenly I had my directors and my department heads, and those were my closest creative confidants. And they're not seeing all the roads that me and the writers went down. So
Right.
they're interpreting things differently. And I remember like when I interviewed my costume designer, Courtney Mitchell, who did a fantastic job, um, I had said in my pitch deck that I didn't want to use red, except
Oh,
for the blood. So I
okay.
that was the idea. Um, and she pitched that Rachel would wear a lot of red. And I was like, that's so bold of you. But it came from like a super smart place. And I don't want to give it away, but there's a reason why Rachel is bringing the red to this space.
Right.
And so you'll notice that she's the only character who wears any shades of red. Um, and so things like that it's like, oh, you just didn't listen to me, but you came from a place that I wouldn't have even thought.
Right.
But it's all there in the work. And so that kind of thing. And then, the house, um, which was our production designer, Dick Lunn, had no time to put together, and he killed it. I don't know how he did it. But we wanted to bring the outside in, and so it was
Yeah.
his idea to put all this atrium in the house, and it feels like this magical snow globe. And then that wasn't like originally, it comes back in the end in an interesting way, and that's something that I figured out once I saw the design of the house. So there's a lot. I love that kind of like back and forth where you hear an idea from someone and it actually shapes something in the story later. It's incredible. And then you get into post and you have a whole new team of people
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
editors who don't have any of the trauma of production in their minds. And so there's like, here's this scene, and I know that you said you wanted it to be this, but I tried it this way. And it's like, wow, that's so cool. What's the harm in experimenting and even the like sound mixing. I had so much fun doing that, and crazy how much storytelling you can do with sound. And so yeah, I mean it's so interesting just watching the thing get better and better and add layers.
Right, but also they're channeling kind of what you created too. I think that's what with in watching people create art, it's so amazing in that capacity. What things inspire them and those
Yeah.
creative ideas and choices. Um, our time is coming closer to an end, so just two quick questions. What scares you? Is it what is anything in it in the series watching it back? Does any of it scare you, or is it because you're way too close?
The show, nothing in the show scares me.
Yeah,
I am afraid of everything though. That's why I like horror so much.
yeah.
I'm not someone, I know there are horror fans who are like, nothing scares me. I'm just waiting for that thing to finally do it. I'm the opposite. I'm like watching horror movies with my hands in front of my eyes. Um, so it makes it easy in a way to kind of see the horror in everything,
Uh-huh.
which so I'll like freak myself out laying in bed trying to come up with ideas. And anytime I hear a noise, I just picture the worst possible thing.
Okay, that's good. I guess that works for your own creative inspiration. I'm like, not before bed though. Don't give yourself nightmares. Um,
Yeah.
and kind of lastly, is there one thing about the series for you that stands out as something that you think would make people want to watch it who haven't yet tuned in?
Yeah, I mean, I will say yes, it's a horror show, but if you're not traditionally a fan of horror, there's a lot more to it. And I did say this, the pilot has the most jump scares in it. So keep watching even if you don't love jump scares. Um, because ultimately the show, it has this title, it's leading you down a path of dread. But the second half really does become much more of a character drama and relationship story, especially, and there is actually a lot of hope in it, I would say. So I think if you're anxious about the genre, I think there's a lot will find in the show that's actually uh, nothing like a traditional horror. So stick with it.
Yeah. Plus, I loved what you pointed out kind of about each episode having like a little subgenre or a note on influences, which is lovely to watch out for as well. Well, yay. Well, we could talk longer about this, especially going to spoiler territory, but we won't because we want you all to watch it if you haven't already. Thank you so much to our friends at Netflix. Thank you so much, Haley, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.